Hey everybody, Al Iverson here. It's time for another one of your email authentication and deliverability questions answered. This time around, we're going to talk about SPF alignment and Google Workspace and problems that people have had trying to get full SPF alignment when sending mail from Google Workspace. This question has come up a lot lately, and so I thought it'd be good to do a video on it. I want to have something that I can link people to and share with all of you. Here's an example of one of those questions recently. This is from Reddit last week. Failing SPF alignment when using send mail as in Google Workspace. You've got a paid workspace subscription with his primary domain. He's got a user alias domain as secondary domain. Mail sent to both addresses are working fine. That's working good. But when he sends mail as the secondary domain, the alias domain, email send properly, but SPF, he says, is failing because it's attached to the primary domain. What does that actually mean? Now, it's not actually that SPF is failing, it's that it doesn't align. And I'll explain more in a second of the difference between alignment and failure, because alignment, it does not mean failure. Alignment means this. Alignment means that an authentication indicator for a domain matches the visible from domain. For SPF alignment, you're saying that the return path, the bounce domain, or the SPF domain matches the visible from domain, what's in the from address. With DKIM alignment, there's that hidden DKIM signature header that you specify the domain in that, and DKIM alignment means that that DKIM header's domain, usually the D equals setting in that header, matches again the visible from domain. Now, for what I think of as DMARC alignment, I'm not sure if I'm using the term exactly correctly, but I'm going to call it DMARC alignment. And what DMARC alignment means is that DMARC passes because either or both SPF and DKIM align. It can be one or the other or both. It does not have to be both. In a perfect world, yeah, it's great to have both because it's a little bit belt and suspenders, where if one fails, you still got the other one as a solid authentication mechanism to make sure that DKIM passes. But again, it doesn't have to be both. Just one of them passing is fine. There's also strict versus relaxed alignment. I'm not going to go too deep into the weeds here. I'm just going to quickly point these out. Strict alignment is where they exactly match. Like the SPF or return path domain could be address could be al@wombatmail.com. When the from is al@wombatmail.com, the wombatmail.com matches exactly. That's strict alignment. That's very commonly seen with DKIM. Most people set up DKIM that way. Their DKIM signature domain exactly matches what's in the from address. Relaxed alignment means that one could be a subdomain of the other one. They're both part of the same organizational or apex level for the domain. As an example, like you could have a return path domain that's bounce.domain.com or email.domain.com, while a visible from address is domain.com. So those don't exactly match, right? They're separate bits of text. There's a different subdomain, different host name at the front of that. But since they're both part of the same domain, domain.com here, they pass under the concept of relaxed alignment. You see this a lot more with SPF, where a lot of people will set up a subdomain. Even in the case of trying to get full alignment, they'll make the SPF alignment relaxed, where they set up that subdomain to track, for example, bounces from an email marketing or marketing automation platform separately with a specific subdomain, so they have a specific bounce processing or mail server handling for that. Anyway, back to the story at hand. So the complaint here is that if I am a Google Workspace user, and I am, and my default domain there is wombatmail.com. So by default, I send mail as al@wombatmail.com. I can also set up and have set up an alias domain in Google Workspace for spamresource.com, my deliverability blog. So I can also send as al@spamresource.com. Now, when I do that, I've got DKIM configured for Google to sign mail either way. If I send it as wombatmail.com, signs with DKIM for that. Send it as spamresource.com, it sends as DKIM for that. So either way, the DKIM aligns. But the SPF domain, the return path for any mail I send, regardless of which email address I use to send from in Google Workspace, the return path, SPF domain, is always going to be wombatmail.com. That is how Google Workspace works. They always specifically make the return path, or SPF, be the original first main domain for email addresses in that Google Workspace instance. And that's okay, because that's how Workspace works. There's no setting to override that. You can set up secondary domain instead of user alias domain if you want. That'll let you actually have mailboxes at a totally different domain, but that you lose the flexibility to send from both domains. I do this with my wife's bookstore. She's got her jarvisbooks.com set up as a secondary domain in my Google Workspace instance. So she's got, Kate at Jarvis Square Books, and that always passes and aligns SPF and DKIM, but she has no way to send as any other domain. She can't send as Wombat Mail. She can't send as Spam Resource. So that's the difference there between alias domains. Alias domains are so the user can choose to send from multiple domains from one account versus secondary domains where they're totally separate. So that can incur extra costs there if you have to have separate mailboxes because you want to manage separate domains and you want to have everything aligned. Each account ultimately in that Google Workspace instance is always going to have the same return path or SPF domain from whenever they send mail from that instance. So whether it be in the configuration for the secondary domain or the core first domain for where you've layered an alias domain on top of that, the return path or SPF is always going to be the same for each account. There is no modification for it. No variability for it inside of a single account. But that's not a failure. This is a really important thing to remember. SPF will still pass. It will just not align. It will not match your from address. And again, that is okay. Lack of SPF alignment is not the same as SPF failure. It will not cause issues. Many, many email service providers and marketing automation platforms are configured this way. And that's okay. That's how they've worked for years. That's how they track bounces. They make it so that bounces, rejections will come back to them instead of going to the person on the from address because they want the automation to handle the bounce processing. They don't want to overload the mailbox of the person who actually authored the message. And the reason that that's okay, the reason that works is because DKIM, as long as DKIM is in place, domain keys identified mail, and as long as that's in place and working, DMARC's going to pass. The mail authenticates just fine. You've got DKIM alignment, you're passing DMARC, and email is just gonna deliver just fine. Of course, that's not the only thing that governs whether or not email gets to the inbox, but it is an important one, and you're not going to get to the inbox unless you've got DMARC and email authentication set up properly. So that's it. That's it for today. That's that's sort of a brain dump of a long technical thing. I hope that wasn't too overwhelming. If you got questions about this or anything else, or if you can think of something that would make for a good follow-up video for me to answer a question about, please drop me an email, al.iverson@valamail.com. And when you are ready to embark upon your DMARC journey to protect your domain against phishing and spoofing, please come visit us at our website at valamail.com. Thanks. Have a great day, and catch you in the next one.